Hello, everyone. My name is Noah Salaji, and I have the privilege of introducing my basketball coach, Todd Murphy, this morning. Coach Murphy has been a part of the Gordon College community for the past 9 years. Coach Murphy attended the University of California at Irvine, where he played 4 years of collegiate Division I basketball. He went on to be a third-round pick in the 1986 NBA draft, where he was selected by the Seattle Supersonics. Coach Murphy played in the NBA for 5 seasons and competed with many of basketball's finest players such as Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Charles Barkley. He went on to play several more years professionally in Europe as well. It is fair to say that Coach Murphy's long list of accomplishments would impress just about anyone, that is, if he ever told them. In the time that I've spent playing under Coach Murphy, I've been remarkably impressed by his overwhelming humility and sense of character. And although his list of accomplishments may be long, I'm certain that it is his relationship with Jesus Christ that he is most proud of. Throughout my time here at Gordon, Coach Murphy has helped our team develop and sharpen our skills on the court, but even more so, he's been a tremendous example of what it means to be a godly man, a faithful husband, and a loving father. He's given us everything we need to succeed and has always preached that the pursuit of our basketball goals should always come second to the pursuit of our faith and relationship with the Lord. The way Coach Murphy cares for his family, players, and colleagues is a great testament to the Christian faith, as well as a great testament of Christ-like character. It is with great honor and appreciation that I welcome Todd Murphy to the stage this morning. Please welcome him.
Good morning, Gordon College. I am really excited to be able to share my story with you. And by excited, I mean terrified, because I can honestly say I'm scared out of my mind right now. But I have Pastor Tom Haugen to thank for that. He asked me to share my testimony with you, and he said, "Hey, Todd, do me a favor and talk about the first 54 years of your life and squeeze it into about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to give it a shot, but I am struggling with this, I will admit. And as a matter of fact, I called Tom yesterday and asked him, if I read what I've written down, it'll only take me about 10 to 12 minutes, but if I wing it, it's probably going to take me 15, 16 minutes. He said, wing it. Well, you don't see anything up here, so hate to break it to you, I'm going more than 10, 12 minutes today, so. But I was struggling so badly that yesterday, and yes, as you can see, I'm kind of winging it because this is from yesterday now. My wife saw how much I was struggling, and she looked at me and she said, "Come here." And I knew that meant that she was going to pray for me. What a blessing. And in that prayer, she said, I might need my water, but anyways. My mouth is already getting dry, holy smokes. It's only been a minute. Saddle up, people. So anyways, in this prayer, the thing that struck me was that she prayed for peace for me to be able to speak to the Gordon community about my love affair with God. I had never considered my testimony as a love affair, but that's exactly what it is. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about my love affair with God. But I will tell you, it's a little bit different type of journey, because the reality is I wasn't raised with any faith. But I will say this, as a child, I had a great life. I had the two best parents ever. I know I can get an argument here, but I had the two best parents ever. And even though they didn't have faith, I know that I was raised with Christian values. But we never talked about God. We never went to church. Jesus Christ was never mentioned in my house. But as a kid who loved sports, I was okay with that. I was hanging out, playing with my friends, playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball, watching it all on TV. I didn't have time to go to church and get all nice and dressed up. I made fun of those kids, for God's sakes. I was like a 7-year-old Apostle Paul persecuting the Christians. So I didn't know any better. Life was great. But as I got older, I remember asking my mom, well, why didn't we have faith? Why don't we go to church? And she said, well, your dad and I thought that it would be best that this sort of decision, this big a decision, should be made by somebody who is more mature and older. I don't agree with that now, but God bless her. I love my mom. But that was the choice they made for me. It wasn't until I was playing professional basketball in a small town outside of Madrid, Spain, that I finally took my first step in faith. And I asked my parents for Christmas that year for a Bible. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have been a little bit more specific in my request because they sent me the King James Version of the Bible. Every time I picked up that Bible and read it, it felt like I was reading Shakespeare, and I hated Shakespeare. So, I mean, I think Psalm 23, it says something like, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Whose art? Thy rod and thy staff will comforts me. Well, my dad had a rod and a staff. It wasn't to comfort me. Just saying. So, but I had taken that first step, and I started to read the Bible. As little of it as I could, figure out, I was reading the Bible. After playing in Madrid for a year, I moved on and played professionally in the NBA. And I started to ask questions, and I continued to read the Bible. And I used to go to chapel services before games. I was definitely on my journey. But there was nothing that really made me make that commitment to being a follower of Jesus Christ. So, moving forward a little bit, I continued, and by the way, I did find a Bible that I loved. I got it at Costco for $25. I mean, how can you not love that? But anyways, I actually understood it, but it wasn't until I was 32 years old that a friend of mine asked if I would go to church with her on a Monday night. Monday night? Even I know the church generally happens on Sundays, but she said, oh, the pastor's great. You got to hear this guy. He's unbelievable, and I want to be able to go with you, though. It's really special, okay? Great. So that first Monday comes, I couldn't go. Second Monday comes, she couldn't go. Third Monday, I couldn't go. Fourth Monday, yes, long story short, she couldn't go. I said, forget it, I'm going on my own. Now, I need to let you know, this is the first church service that I've ever been to that wasn't a wedding or a funeral. So I went to church at 32 years old by myself. Now, how many of you ever heard of an altar call? Okay. At 32 years old, I had no idea what an altar call was. I go to this church. What a wonderful service. It was great. I really connected with the pastor. He was very charismatic, saying great things. Felt like at times he was speaking directly to me. At the end of the service, he's giving his closing prayer. And he says, now, is there anyone in the audience who feels like there's something missing in your lives? If so, raise your hand. I want to pray for you. I had no idea what I was doing. Sure, I'm missing something. I got my hand up. He's praying for me. I do know a little bit about prayer, and that's a good thing. So he prays for us. Well, he finishes his prayer, and then he says, okay, anyone who raised your hand, come on up to the altar. What? I got to go up to the altar now? Are you kidding me? Well, after the initial wave of panic had subsided, and fortunately, a lot of other people in the crowd came up to the altar. I joined them at the front of the altar. And he led us through a prayer of commitment. Here I am in church for the first time, 32 years old, don't know anybody in the place, and yet I committed my life to Jesus Christ. Now, that is a pretty big decision, obviously. But I'm going to be honest with you, it didn't have a huge impact on my life Because as I said, I was raised with Christian values. I knew the difference between right and wrong. So I was mostly doing right things. But what it did change in me is it made me hunger. So I was looking for more information. I was reading the Bible a lot more. I was talking to my friends, and I was questioning and asking and trying to learn as much as I could about Jesus Christ. And a couple years later, another friend of mine asked me to church. And the church he brought me to was Saddleback Community Church out in Southern California, where Pastor Rick Warren is the lead pastor. I don't know if any of you have heard of Rick Warren. He's the guy who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. Kind of a big guy, to be honest with you, okay? Purpose-Driven Life, second most read book besides the Bible, just saying, okay? Fell in love with the place. Made it my church home very quickly. I went to church every Sunday. I was loving it. It was unbelievable. So much so that I actually decided to get baptized at Saddleback. But before I could get baptized, it was actually a couple of weeks before, my mom had been struggling with cancer. And she went into the hospital. Her organs were beginning to shut down. And the doctor told my family that she only had a few days to live. And on the day before she passed away, she was pretty much unresponsive. She pretty much just slept all day long, and occasionally she opened her eyes. Well, I stayed after everyone left. I stayed with my mom, and I just wanted to talk to her. And I shared with her that I was getting baptized in a couple of weeks. And I talked about a lot of things, and she didn't respond. But after about 10 minutes, I asked her, "Hey, Mom, do you want me to stay?" Well, for the first time in a long time, she opened her eyes. And for the first time all day, she said yes. So I stayed, of course. And I continued to talk to her. And I read her some of the cards that were on the table there that people had sent while she was in the hospital. And after about 10 more minutes, I asked again, "Mom, do you want me to stay?" This time without response. So I was thinking this might be the last time I ever see my mom alive. So I wrapped her into my arms, gave her a big giant hug. And I whispered in her ear, "Mom, everything is going to be okay. I love you." Now, keep in mind, the only time she had moved the entire day was to open her eyes a few times. At that moment, she put her arms around me, and she said, "I love you too." At the time, I really didn't think about it a whole lot, other than, gosh, how lucky I was. But now I know that it was a gift from God. Now, I'd like to say that things ended at that point, and I'm here and I'm great. No, I struggled with it. And about 5 months later, my dad went into the hospital with pneumonia. While he was there, he contracted a staph infection, and 7 months later, he passed away. I remember getting that phone call at about 2 in the morning from the hospital saying that he had passed away, hanging up and cried as hard as I've ever cried in my life. Obviously, I cried for my dad, at the loss of my dad. But I cried probably as much for myself as anything because I was beginning to doubt God. And not because I didn't believe in Jesus Christ and didn't believe in God, but as you remember, my parents were not faith-filled, at least not to my knowledge. So I was thinking, they're not in heaven. And that's not a heaven I want to be a part of. Because these people were the best people I've ever known in my life, and they're not going to be in heaven. That doesn't make sense to me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I finally just decided one of two things was going to happen. Either A, God was going to take all of my memories of my parents, or there we were in heaven. I'm not sure what is correct and what's not correct. I'm going to ask God when I see him. But this was a really difficult time in my life. And I didn't know what to believe. But throughout this time, I never felt alone. God was with me throughout all of this. And I'm so thankful, obviously. But the crazy part is, the sadness that I felt at the loss of my parents quickly changed into gratefulness for the fact that I had these two wonderful human beings in my life for 34 and 35 years respectively. How blessed could I possibly be? As a matter of fact, my sadness for myself turned into sadness for the people who would never get the opportunity to meet my parents, like my beautiful wife. She never met my parents. My 3 beautiful kids, not going to meet my parents. The teams that I've coached, never going to meet my parents. All of you will never meet my parents, hopefully until you get to heaven. So this was very difficult for me, but fast forward to present day. I've had a wife for 16 years, beautiful wife, God-fearing wife who prays with me. By the way, that leads me to a side note. Men of Gordon, make sure you marry a God-fearing wife, woman who will pray with you. You will never regret it. I've got 3 beautiful, intelligent, godly daughters. I've got a great job in a faith community where I can talk about my faith. And my faith has never been stronger than it is right now. But the great part about my faith right now being so strong is the stronger it gets, the more you want to learn. I hunger for it now. I'm reading stories, Bibles. When I work out, I watch Pastor Rick's sermons from Saddleback Church on my phone. I got a question. How many of you have ever seen the movie Rudy? Great movie, okay? The thing that I recall from that movie is when Rudy is sitting in the church with the priest, and the priest says, "Hey, Rudy, there are 2 things of which I am certain. There is a God, and I'm not him." Well, I'd like to add just 2 more things to that. I am certain there is a God. I am certain that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die on a cross for all of our sins. I am certain that he rose again 3 days later to conquer death. And I am certain that he loves me and I love him. Thank you very much. By the way, you are dismissed.